Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome you to this press conference in spite of the very short notice. We're gathered here to express our concerns over the state of our nation. More than 2 decades ago, the Nigerian people, led by the progressive extraction of the civil society, protested against the manipulation of political transition from military dictatorship to democratic rule. Notwithstanding the repressive attacks on our people by the military power mongers, the Ibrahim Babangida junta was defeated. The political crisis over the annulment of the results of the presidential election held on June 12, 1993, culminated in the imposition of the interim national government headed by Chief Ernest Shonekan. To the utter dismay of the military hierarchy, the ING was declared illegal and unconstitutional by the Lagos High Court. The anti-democratic forces regrouped under General Sani Abacha, who sacked the illegal ING and installed himself a military head of state. The Mondros junta waged an unsuccessful war against the Nigerian people for 5 years. In the process, some of the political leaders who had collaborated with the dictator were either eliminated or chased into exile. In fact, one of them wrote the coup speech. He had to find himself in the UK. At the end of the day, the maximum ruler was defeated by the Nigerian people. His successor, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, had no choice but to hand over power to a civilian regime headed by General Olusegun Obasanjo. Instead of building and strengthening the institutions of democracy, the Obasanjo administration engaged in the subversion of the constitution. The autonomy of public institutions was jettisoned. The rule of law was disregarded as court orders were treated with disdain. The leadership of the National Assembly and the ruling party was imposed and changed by the presidency at will. Candidates were handpicked, while the Independent National Electoral Commission became an extension of the presidency. In a desperate bid to extend his own tenure, President Goodluck Jonathan decided to foist a third-term agenda on the nation. Once again, the Nigerian people defeated the satanic agenda. The do-or-die 2007 general election was crudely manipulated by the presidency. It was so embarrassing that the newly elected president, the late Mr. Umaru Yar'Adua, admitted that the election that brought him into office was highly flawed. 2 years later, the president took ill and was flown abroad for treatment. A cabal took advantage of the absence of the president and decided to rule the country by proxy. The then vice president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, was prevented from exercising any power in the absence of the president as stipulated in the constitution. Once again, the civil society organizations staged rallies to protest the illegal seizure of power by the cabal. The protest forced the National Assembly to pass a resolution which made President Jonathan the acting president of the Republic under the doctrine of necessity. In 2011, a general election was conducted by the INEC under the chairmanship of Professor Atahiru Jega. This is very important because it was Jega that conducted the 2011 election. The presidential election was won by Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. But as the nation was preparing for the 2015 general election, slated for February 14 and 28, 2015, the Jonathan administration commenced a campaign for postponement, following the refusal of the Council of State to support the postponement. The National Security Advisor to the President and the security chiefs wrote to the INEC to defend that they could not provide security for the election, as the armed forces would be involved in a military operation in the northeast region. As the operation would last for 6 weeks, the INEC was compelled to shift the election to March 11 and March 28 and April 11, 2015. As far as we are concerned, the postponement of the election at the instance of the service chiefs cannot be justified in law. It was a plot to undermine the democratic process. and prevent Nigerians from exercising their right of franchise. Having fought the war on terror for 6 years, there is no indication that the Boko Haram sect will be wiped out in 6 weeks. Since the operation is limited to 14 local governments in the country, there was no basis for not holding election in the remaining 760 local government areas and the 6 area councils in Abuja. The former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, has cried out against the plan of the federal government to cancel the election and install an interim government in place. In his reaction to the grave allegation, the presidency turned around to accuse Chief Olusegun Obasanjo of trying to hide the ING. They didn't say there was no such plan, but they say himself is planning to head it. However, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Adoke Esien, has stated that there is no provision for interim national government in the Constitution, and we agree with them. In the circumstance, we wish to warn those who are planning to install an interim government or stage a coup d'etat to perish the idea. We have had enough of dictatorial regimes in the country. We are ever worried that the new election dates are not sacrosanct. According to the ANEC chairman, Professor Jega, that was last week at the Senate, only the service chiefs could guarantee that the rescheduled elections will hold. That was the submission of INEC when he appeared at the Senate last week. INEC was. For reasons best known to them, the security chiefs have not assured the nation that security will be provided on the new election dates. We are therefore compelled to call on the National Assembly to extract a firm undertaking from the NSA and the security chiefs that the general elections will not be further postponed or disrupted. Because one thing to hold the election, it's another thing for them to instigate disruption. And that is why we are giving this warning. The undertaking ought to be made publicly by the service chiefs in view of the categorical pronouncement of the Court of Appeal last week that the armed forces have no role whatsoever in the electoral process. Since all authorities and persons are banned to obey the verdicts of our courts, the President and the security chiefs should demonstrate their commitment to kowtow to the rule of law by withdrawing soldiers from election duties. At the same time, the revelations in the audio cassette recorded by an army captain on the role of the military and other government officers and their cohorts in the 2014 governorship election in Ekiti State should be investigated without any further delay. More so, that some of the dramatic personnel have admitted their role in the criminal enterprise. We need to prevent a slide into anarchy. We need to take our destiny in our hands. We need to ensure that darkness does not once again descend on our country. We are insisting that nothing must change the new dates of March 28th and April 11th. Elections must be allowed to hold on these dates. Nigeria is on the march again. This time, no one will be able to halt the decisive will of the people for democracy and sustainable livelihood. Finally, in rejecting the manipulation of the political transition, we organized a rally on February 14 to condemn the conspiracy of the ruling clique against Nigeria. Another rally is scheduled to hold on February 28, 2015 in many cities in Nigeria, where Nigerians will stand hand in hand to speak with one voice against electoral terrorism, against any further post shift, against any attempt to introduce an interim government, against any military incursion into politics, against corruption, against the devaluation of the currency. We call on Nigerians to come out in large numbers to assert themselves and take control of their destiny. I thank you very much.